Birdseye Jacquard is a knit structure used to create multicolored fabrics with designs, patterns, or custom artwork. If you look, my lady friend right here, she has on a 3-color Birdseye Jacquard, top and bottom. It's the same pattern. The top is the reverse side, and the bottom is the sort of front side of the fabric. You can see, if I lift this up, it's the same fabric on the reverse side. So it's the exact same pattern. This is just one side of the fabric, and that is the other side of this fabric. Same colors, same pattern, just like this. It's just the skirt and the top are reversible, so you can get a few different looks out of it. The pixelated pattern on the back of the fabric, like this top, is the trademark appearance of the Birdseye Jacquard structure. When it has this pattern on the back, you know it's a Birdseye Jacquard. This structure is sometimes called a twill jacquard because the back kind of looks like a twill pattern, or it's sometimes called an all-needle jacquard because all colors are knitted on all needles on the back side as well. Just know these 3 names are the same fabric. This is a great stitch for custom artwork or pattern designs on your fabric. You can design whatever you want to appear on the knit fabrics. This part is a lot of fun coming up with patterns and shapes that you can do letters, animals, landscapes, emojis, whatever you want on your fabric. With this structure, 2 or 3 colors per row works the best. It's possible to use more, but the stitch structure becomes increasingly distorted and unstable with each added color. Take a look at this 6-color Birdseye Jacquard swatch compared to a 3-color Birdseye Jacquard swatch. The front stitches become elongated with 6 colors, which gives a higher risk of snagging and other damage to the fabric. So less colors keeps it more durable. The fabric is also less balanced, meaning there tends to be a higher tension on the front, which can cause edges to roll or warping of the fabric. It also distorts the pattern and gives the effect of a lower resolution. If each stitch represents a pixel, then the pattern with less colors gives a look of higher resolution because the stitches are smaller. I'm recommending limiting each row to 3 colors, but there is no limit on how many colors you can use in the whole fabric. This swatch uses 9 colors, but still 3 colors per row to keep the integrity of this structure. This is one of my favorite stitches for reversible garments because both sides look clean and finished and really pretty. The only thing different you have to do is make sure the seam and edge finishes are clean on both sides. For that, I recommend tubular seams and edge finishes like this. Let's take a quick look at the stitch structure of a 3-color Birdseye Jacquard to see what's really happening. Our needles are in position H, meaning they are alternating. Position P, they are lined up to each other. Start at the bottom and we work our way up the fabric. So row 1 is at the bottom. The back pattern is fixed. As you can see in row 1, every other needle is knitted on the back bed. The needles knitted on the front bed will change with your desired pattern. In row 2, the remaining every other needles are knitted on the back bed, and this keeps alternating row by row to create the signature Birdseye Jacquard back. This results in, for every 1 stitch on the front, there are 1.5 stitches on the back. I call this a fabric imbalance because the number of stitches on the front and the back are not the same. This is a fabric imbalance with a ratio of 1 to 1.5 or 66.6%. Let's compare that to a 6-color jacquard. For every 1 stitch on the front, there are 3 stitches on the back. You can see as we add more colors, the fabric becomes increasingly imbalanced. With a ratio of 1 to 3 or 33.3%, we're getting further away from a balanced fabric, which isn't a good thing. For a lot of stitches, this is totally fine to have some imbalance happening, and for most people it's not even noticeable when they look at a fabric. But I personally prefer to have fabrics that are 100% balanced if I can. They lay better, they feel better, and they are easier to work with. This stitch allows more diversity in pattern creation than float jacquard because you don't have to worry about the distance between each color. When doing float jacquard, the distance between a particular color can't be too far as the float on the reverse side will become too long. Normally you don't want to go more than 5 or 6 stitches before using the color again in the same row, so the floats aren't longer than 5 or 6 stitches. This creates a lot of design limitations with float jacquard because you need to make sure you're not going too long with stitches without using each color in a particular row. Knitting whole garments out of a machine is becoming more popular as Shimaseki and Stoll both have machines capable of this. Float jacquard is the only possible jacquard to use when knitting out whole garments. It only needs a single bed to knit on, where Birdseye Jacquard is a double bed stitch, therefore not capable to use on whole seamless garments. Here is my characteristic assessment of the Birdseye Jacquard stitch. Knitting time is quick. This stitch can be busted out on an auto machine, that is if you are using optimal yarns for an auto knit machine. Yarn can make a big difference in how quickly things can be knitted. A more durable yarn can be knitted faster, which results in lower priced garments. If I wanted to use a delicate fine mohair yarn that breaks easily under tension, that yarn will have to be knitted at a slower speed and will be reflected in the price. Just based on stitch and disregarding yarn properties, this is a quick stitch to knit with a durable yarn. Programming time is going to vary a little. In general, it should be fairly quick if you already have a file, like a bitmap file that accurately reflects your pattern and is simplified down to the desired amount of colors. These bitmap files can be imported into the knit program and put right on top of the stitch structure. The stitch structure is normally a preset in knitting programs, so that doesn't take time to program. What can take time is your custom artwork that will appear on the front of the fabric, making sure the placement and scale are what you want and that the pattern isn't cut off in weird places, stuff like that. Price can be low to moderate. There are two main components that make up price: labor and materials. Labor is basically related to time, how long it takes to make a garment, which relates to the 2 points above, knitting time and programming time, plus can also involve finishing time. For example, making the garment reversible by adding tubular seams and edges will up the price slightly because the finishing details take a little more time than normal seams and edge finishes. So time, which relates to labor, isn't going to up the price much unless you have unique hand finishing details involved in your garment. But because programming and knitting time aren't going to take too long, price for the stitch should be pretty reasonable. Materials relates to yarn. Yarn is sold by weight. This is a double bed stitch. Just as a comparison, this stitch is going to cost more than the jersey stitch just based on weight, because this stitch is roughly twice as thick as the jersey stitch, so it's going to cost more money because it will use more yarn. Strength is quite good. It's pretty durable. If you haven't caught on yet, when deciding on the characteristic ratings for stitches, I default into comparing each stitch to the jersey stitch because jersey is the most common stitch used in auto knitting and mass market knitwear, so it tends to be a good base to go on when assessing the strengths and weaknesses of other stitches. Drape is not too good. This stitch is better for a more structured appearance. It is possible though, if you want a Birdseye Jacquard that is drapey, I recommend doing a fine gauge like 12 or 14 gauge and using a super drapey yarn like viscose or rayon. Something that's really slinky and moves well. This will help give a jacquard structure some movement and drape. Comfort is good. The flat surface lays nicely against the skin. Because of its structure, it does lack some stretch. This won't be as stretchy as jersey. Texture is low. Both sides of the fabric have the appearance of jersey, which is quite flat and smooth, lacking texture. That can be good or bad, just depending on what you're going for. Weight is moderate. It's a double bed stitch, so there's some weight to it compared to single bed stitches like jersey. If you want a lighter weight jacquard, float jacquard is the lightest jacquard because it's a single bed structure. Torquing, also known as fabric spirality. If you don't know what torquing is, it's twisting distortion that can happen sometimes, especially with high twist yarns or single ply yarns, usually on single bed fabrics. It doesn't occur often on double bed fabrics because the knitting on both sides tend to cancel or balance out the distortion. Torquing on this is low because it uses both beds of the machine fairly evenly. Chances of torquing are quite low on Birdseye Jacquard. Balance is okay. When I say balance, I'm talking about how the fabric lays. Does it roll up on itself? Is it curling in on itself? Balance will tell you how well the fabric will lay on its own. Personally, I love fabrics that are 100% balanced, so I have a few issues with the 3 or more color Birdseye Jacquards. The back side of a traditional 3 color or more Birdseye Jacquard always has more stitches than the front, so it tends to curl up on itself. This can be improved by adjusting the tension in the program, loosening the front side of the tension or tightening the back side. 2 colored Birdseye Jacquard is 100% balanced, meaning there are the exact same amount of stitches on the front as there are on the back, so it doesn't curl in any direction and it does lay flat. Stretch is somewhat limited on this stitch and not as good as jersey or rib. Jersey and rib are going to have more stretch. Creative versatility is high. There is so much potential in this stitch to create unique patterns, prints, and designs. This is where Birdseye Jacquard truly shines, and it wins out against almost every other stitch. This stitch is about letting loose and doing really fun, crazy patterns. That's my full assessment of the Birdseye Jacquard stitch. Let me know below if you have any questions. I know that was a lot of information. I'd be happy to clarify anything below, or if you'd like to share your thoughts and feelings about Birdseye Jacquard, let it all out below as well. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like if you like Birdseye Jacquard.